Hi there, I'm back. So I hope that you've had a chance to open up Premiere and look around a little bit. If not, today is going to be the first time that you're going to be doing so. And I want to remind you real quick that this unit is all about organization. So we won't really be working in Premiere Pro today. We're just going to be looking at a few settings and getting familiar with its general layout. So let's go ahead and open Premiere Pro. Okay, so my Premiere is down here right at the bottom. It takes a minute to open, so just know that that happens to everyone. I'm going to go ahead and keep it in real time so that you know what to expect when you're getting started. Now, when this part opens, if this picture looks a little different on your computer, that's okay. They update this picture every few months or so. So if your picture is different than mine, you probably just have a more updated version than I do. But don't worry, it's going to be pretty much exactly the same. When they do updates, they don't change that much, just quick fixes and things like that. All right, so the first thing that comes up is going to be this opening screen. I don't know why it's so big, but they decided in this version of Premiere to make it like cover the whole screen. So these are some of my old projects. You probably won't have anything right here for you, but just know that in the future, this is a really handy way to access some of your old files or your current files that you're working on. What you want to do right now is in this left corner over here, go to New Project. So this window will pop up. Before you name your project, what you want to do is go over here and go to Browse. This is going to tell Adobe where you want the project to be saved. You could come up with the best project in the whole world and it won't matter because you won't be able to find it. So make sure that you know where it's saving to. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder called Course, and then save my project on my hard drive in my new course file. And I'm going to name it, I'm just going to name this one Test, because we won't really be using this program. We're just opening it just to look around. So again, it takes a second. So this is Adobe Premiere Pro. This is going to be the default for a lot of you when you first open Premiere Pro. It defaults into this Learning tab here at the top. I want you to go over into the Editing tab at the top so that you can continue to follow along with my tutorial. Each one of these four windows has its own function. Down here on the bottom left, this is your project panel. Above that is the source monitor. This long, skinny window right here is called the timeline. And then above that, the top right corner is the program monitor. So source monitor, program monitor, timeline, and the project panel. The next lesson, we're going to be adding real footage into Adobe Premiere. So in the next lesson, you'll get to see what each program does. But before we can do that, we have to check out a few important settings. So no program is perfect, and occasionally Premiere will experience an error and it will have to shut down. However, if that happens, or should I say, when that happens, you don't have to fear that you've lost your hours and hours of work. I want to show you a really excellent feature called autosave. Autosave has saved my life, saved my work so many times I can't even tell you. But there are a few settings that you can customize. So come up here to the top left corner and open Premiere Pro. And then scroll down to Preferences and select Autosave. That is what you do if you are on a Mac. However, if you are on a PC, you're going to come to File, scroll down to Preferences, and then over to Autosave. Okay, so once that window pops up, you can see here, I have it set to automatically save my projects. Make sure that this is selected. So right now, the settings are set to automatically save every 10 minutes. That's a pretty good interval. Any more than that, and it's going to be a little bit too much because every time it auto saves, a little window pops up. You're frozen for like 10 seconds. So any more than 10 minutes is a little overkill, I think. Any longer than 10 minutes, though, is you're reworking a lot of things if that happens to close on you. So 10 minutes is a good place that you want to be. Maximum project versions. This is something that you can set depending on your own preferences. So every 10 minutes, Adobe's going to save my Premiere Pro project. So right now it's going to save 20 different versions. Once I hit my 21st version, it's going to record over my oldest version. So it'll continually have my last 20 10-minute intervals, or my last 200 minutes of work, basically. So you can set this as high or as low as you want. There has been a few occasions in my life when I've needed to go back really far in my autosave to get a really old version before I did something or other. So you can save as many copies as you want. Again, that's going to take up just room on your hard drive. So you probably don't need more than 50, I'd say. If you're being really conservative, you can save 50 versions, but 20 is going to be fine. So the only other thing that I need you to look at right now is your keyboard settings. Editing is more than what you can just do with your mouse. Editing requires both hands. And so your left hand is always going to be on your keyboard. It's going to make you much more efficient and a much faster editor if you get used to using that keyboard hand. So to look up your keyboard settings, again, go over here to Premiere Pro. Scroll down, and the fourth option is keyboard shortcuts. Again, that is if you are on a Mac. If you're on a PC, go to the top to edit, and then the second to last option is keyboard settings. So just click on that, and it's gonna bring you up here all of your keyboard settings. So I first started learning editing on a different program. I started editing on a program called Final Cut Pro 7. Version 7 is what I used when I was in college. So I got really fast at using those keyboard shortcuts in Final Cut. However, when I made the transition over to Adobe, it was hard for me, for an old dog like me, to learn new tricks. And so Adobe has a setting that you can use your Final Cut Pro 7 settings. And so you can see I have one customization. When I push the M button, it sets a marker, which we'll talk about in the future. So if you would like to follow along with my keyboard shortcuts, I want you right now to go ahead and select the Final Cut Pro 7 keyboard settings. However, this is totally up to you. If you would like to keep the default settings for Premiere Pro and learn them yourself and ignore any of the keyboard settings that I say and that I teach you, then go ahead and keep it as the Premiere Pro default. But again, if you would like to follow along with me, when I edit, I'm going to be recording my keyboard and my hand so that you can see what I'm doing and how I'm able to do things so fast. So again, if you would like to follow along and copy along with that, then right now go ahead and set your keyboard shortcut settings to Final Cut Pro 7. And then in this search box right here, I want you to type in marker. So let's see. Add marker right there, and then type M. And then you will also have this custom setting, which is essentially Final Cut Pro 7 shortcuts with that M marker on that M button. And then you just hit OK and go ahead and save it. If you would like a printout of my keyboard shortcuts, the Final Cut Pro 7 with that one customization, I will add a screenshot of it in this lesson right below. Okay, so that is all for our organization within Adobe Premiere. In our next unit, we're going to be importing footage for the Baker wedding. The Baker wedding is a wedding that I shot a few years ago for a family friend. So I want to make sure that you have downloaded that footage. There's a link down below. You should be able to get to my Dropbox and download that entire wedding. Again, there's about 95 gigabytes worth of footage, and make sure that you have that for our next unit. Your action items for this project are: open Premiere Pro on your computer, create a new project, making sure to save it in your finished files folder, set your autosave to your preferred settings, decide what keyboard settings you would like to use and set them as such. Last but not least, make sure that you have all of the files from the Baker wedding because we will be using them in the next lesson.